Jimmy Page, the legendary guitarist of Led Zeppelin and one of the most influential figures in rock history, continues to be the subject of countless headlines, tributes, and unfortunately, sensationalized rumors that spread like wildfire across social media and YouTube, with dramatic titles such as 2 minutes ago, tragic news for Jimmy Page, often capturing attention but rarely grounded in fact. And while fans immediately fear the worst when they see such claims given that Page is now in his 80s and part of a generation of rock icons gradually fading from the stage of life, the truth behind these stories is usually far less dire, though not without its own bittersweet reality. Recently, the only verified news involving Jimmy Page concerned the resolution of a long-running copyright battle tied to Dazed and Confused, a song famously recorded by Led Zeppelin, but originally written by folk artist Jake Holmes, who had claimed Page adapted the track without proper credit. After years of litigation, reports confirmed that Page and his legal team quietly reached a settlement, avoiding further courtroom battles, a move that both relieved fans and stirred up old debates about the band's history of borrowing and reshaping material from other musicians. While not a tragedy in the sense of personal loss or health decline, the lawsuit's conclusion nevertheless brought renewed scrutiny and reminded fans that even legends are not immune to the shadows of their past. And for Page, a man who has long been protective of his legacy, the closing of this chapter was both necessary and deeply reflective. The reason these tragic news headlines hit so hard is because Jimmy Page has long symbolized not just rock and roll but an entire era of musical revolution, and fans feel a visceral connection to him, remembering the wild days of Zeppelin tours, the groundbreaking riffs of Whole Lotta Love and Stairway to Heaven, and the mystique he cultivated as a guitarist who seemed to channel something otherworldly through his instrument. To imagine that something tragic has happened to him strikes a chord of collective dread, because losing Page would mean more than the death of a man. It would mark another closing chapter in the history of rock itself. Thankfully, as of now, there has been no credible confirmation of any tragedy involving his health or life. Despite the avalanche of videos and articles using clickbait titles to stir up panic, instead, Page remains alive, largely private, and still deeply respected, though he has retreated from the spotlight in recent years, appearing only for select interviews, archival projects, or tribute events that honor Zeppelin's unparalleled influence. What makes the story of Jimmy Page bitter? Where the true tragedy lies is not in sudden dramatic news, but in the quiet passing of time itself. Like many of his peers, Page has watched the music world change dramatically since Zeppelin's heyday, with streaming, modern pop, and changing cultural tastes replacing the raw, untamed rock spirit that once ruled arenas. While his legacy is secure, the tragedy is that we may never see him perform at full force again. Never witness that electrifying stage presence that once left audiences in awe. And for fans who grew up in the shadow of his riffs, that reality is a heartbreak all its own. Page himself has spoken about aging, about how the fire to create still burns in him, but the physical demands of touring and recording no longer match the hunger of his youth. And this quiet fading from public view is, in many ways, the real tragedy, one not announced in shocking headlines, but felt in the slow realization that time claims even the greatest of legends. So while the internet may scream, 2 minutes ago, tragic news for Jimmy Page in sensational font, the truth is more nuanced, more human, and ultimately more meaningful. Jimmy Page is still here, still inspiring generations with the music he created decades ago. But like all icons, he is mortal, vulnerable, and inevitably facing the twilight of his extraordinary life and career. The tragedy, then, is not some sudden breaking headline, but the simple sadness that we live in a world where time will eventually silence even the loudest guitar, leaving us only with the echoes of riffs that changed music forever.